All right. So I was going to do this as an interview, but that was going to require me wearing another outfit and writing questions. So I'm just going to do it storytelling format. Let's start with some tea because people like tea. Let's talk about my ex-girlfriends. So I had maybe 5 girlfriends before high school, but they don't really count because we didn't really do anything and it wasn't that long of a relationship. So let's start with my first girlfriend in high school. We met at school. We just started talking and flirting a little bit. Got each other's numbers, started texting. We met up at this party and hooked up in a room at the party. Fast forward a little bit, now we're dating. We're boyfriend, girlfriend. She had a really bubbly personality, and I love that about her. She was very outgoing and beautiful face, big, beautiful, voluptuous breasts, and I had a great time. But here's the reasons I broke up with her. My friend Colin and I went to watch her track meet. And he just starts laughing at me he's like, hey, is that your girl? I'm like, yeah. He's like, why is she way back there? Like way and last behind everybody else. And she's breathing like, and I'm like, yes, it just wasn't the best look. So it's just a little like turn off, like, yeah, I could do better, like someone that's more athletic like me. But that's a shallow reason to break up with somebody. So that right there I wasn't about to just break up with her just because of that ick or turn off. Because I'm not shallow. Then we're at school one day going to lunch, and I see her over there with one of her friends, and she's pretending to be a dinosaur, and they're just laughing hysterical about her making these weird dinosaur noises, and like I didn't think it was funny at all. I thought it was annoying. So that was really the deal breaker. And then one time we were 69ing and there was like a piece of lint in her butt. But again, that was the second thing. But so that wasn't a breakup offense either. That was just kind of like, oh, like, yeah. But you know, stuff happens. What did it for me was the dinosaur. So long story short, I was like, we don't have a similar sense of humor. I don't find that funny. They're going way too hard, like cracking up about it. And then the stuff I find funny, they're like, they don't really find that funny. So long story short, we just didn't really share the same sense of humor. So I was in my dad's Chevy Avalanche, and I drove her back to her house after hanging out with her. And I said, like, we have to break up. This is the end. And she was like, okay, well, can I kiss you one last time? And we made out in front of her house, and it was great. It was like a nice closure into it, right? So in my head, I was like, okay, this is like a great first successful relationship. It was 3 months. And I did a lot of stuff with her that I hadn't done with anybody else yet. And I didn't know that by me breaking up with her, she was going to be so devastated by it. The rumor was that she was like throwing up the next day and she couldn't make her track meet. And that since she was Mormon, now she couldn't get married in the church. She didn't tell me any of that stuff. She was the one that told me she wanted to have sex. I wasn't pushing it. Obviously we imply it, but like I wasn't like, we have to like have sex. I don't care if you're Mormon. It wasn't like that at all. It was like I think it's time. Like, what do you think? She's like, yeah, it's time. And then like after I broke up with her, now all of a sudden it's her religion was a big deal. And she never mentioned that at all. She never mentioned that the whole time. So then she went ahead, and that's the thing, is that's kind of really when these kind of rumors started, right? That I could sense people were talking about me, but I had no idea what they were saying. They would never come around and say it to my face. They would have their little groups, and they would kind of stay off to the sidelines and kind of giggle and chuckle at me. And me breaking up with her did lead to me getting into a physical altercation with somebody at school. But after that, I was like, okay, like, that should really be the end of that. But now, where I'm at now, sitting where I'm at now, I still hear these undertones of like murmurs, of like whispers and rumors of like the telephone game, where it's like someone tells someone one thing and then they tell someone one thing, it's totally different. So now I'm just like, all this stuff that I thought I never was going to speak on, I'm like, okay, let me try to tell my story, but not go into too many details here, and then connect the dots of my past, my mindset, why I was the way I was, and then what happened during COVID. And it's not easy to articulate it in a way that's not super boring, but in a way that's not, kicking anyone while they're down, or disrespecting anybody. Even if I don't have respect for somebody, I still am going to try not to disrespect them. I'm just going to try to stay neutral. That's something I've been working on lately. So anyways, that was ex number 1. Ex number 2 now. First time I saw her was at lunch. Going to lunch. And it was like right when that bell rings, like you like power walk to lunch. You didn't want to run to lunch because then you'd sweat and it didn't look cool, but you would just power walk as fast as you can, big strides. So I was like one of the first people trying to get it in the lunch line first, and she was there too. So it's like, oh, we're kind of already like, we just want to like eat, like, and then like, so we're already kind of like in the same type of like vibes. And then I remember just looking over her, and I'm like, man, this is literally the sexiest girl I've ever seen in my life. And we were in love. So anyways, it starts off great. At that time, I have my Infinity G35 with my 20-inch rims on there, with my billet grill, with my exhaust tip. I'm thinking I'm super cool. I have all the Jordan 4s. I have all the Air Force 1s, color coordinated with my Billabong t-shirts, and then my fitted hat, all color coordinated, all different colors. And I pick her up. We go to the movies. We have a great time. And we start dating. And I ask her to prom with flowers, spelling out prom ? Putting lights in her room. And I'm actually going over to her house and her grandparents' house, and I'm actually starting to get closer to her parents. And her dad had a white Hummer that she let me drive, and then we played that song, If You Know, You Know. And then, who the fuck is that? They think they could just make a U-turn right in front of my shit? They can. It's a public street. Just don't come on the lot. But anyways, back to the girl. So then, here's the deal with her. The only reason I broke up with her was because I was going to ASU and she was still going to be a senior at Mountain Ridge. And I was like, there's no way we're going to be able to do a long distance relationship when I'm at ASU with all the freshmen who want to party, and she's going to be there surrounded by all the guys in her grade and all the guys in my grade that were hitting on her that are still going to be lurking around, going to GCC, and have sisters that they pick up from school. So the day before we broke up, we were just playing around, having fun, and I was like, I learned this pressure point. Here, let's try it out on each other. And it was just, you put your finger right here, like behind the ear, and you do it on both sides. And it was like, oh, okay, stop, right? And so she did it to me, I did it to her. And that just coincidentally happened before the talk, where I was like, okay, look, like, we have to break up. Like, you're staying back here, I'm going to ASU. Like, I wish it didn't have to be this way. And she also had just got her wisdom teeth removed. I remember that because it was like bad breath from that. I don't know why I'm remembering that. But anyways, I might cut that part out. But anyways, so we break up. And then a few weeks go by, a few months go by, we don't talk. And then we meet up again and we talk. And I respect her because she was honest with me. I was like, hey, did you hook up with those guys? And she was like, yeah, I did. You know, I always had a crush on them. And I was like, that's cool. That's fair. Like, you were honest. I still respect her for that. You know, out of my 3 girlfriends, I still respect her. I would still talk to her. The other 2 I won't even talk to. I would still talk to ex number 2. Because she was honest. At least back then. You know, I don't know what. She's married now and has kids, and I just wanted her to be happy. So I hope she's happy in her situation now, right? They say if you love her, you gotta let her go, right? And I knew I had to. Oh, and here's the other thing, was I couldn't really see her being the mother of my kids, mainly just because she wasn't that great in math. And I was like, I want someone who's really like sharp and witty. And she was a cheerleader, and she was more blonde cheerleader, ditzy, Jessica Simpson. Oh, is this chicken or tuna? Like, but it was sexy back then. That was cute back then. That was sexy back then. Still gorgeous. Then we have a threesome. Ex number 2, me, and another girl. Who the other girl we had the threesome with gave the best blowjobs ever. She would deep throat it and go really, really fast. Not even the Gluck Gluck 3000. Not even with the hands. Just no hands, just deep throat super fast. The only girl that's ever done that way. So she gets the award for best blowjobs. And again, I haven't name dropped. I haven't name dropped anyone. But if you know, you know, and they know who they are. And I was 18, and I had just graduated. It was summer after high school, after senior year graduation. And up until that point, my mindset was, okay, I want to hook up with girls. And experience experience hooking up with girls. Having fun and partying was just a way to meet girls back then. Social media wasn't that big. Especially the people I was around, we kind of looked at social media as like, that's not real life. Like, nerds are going to be online. Like, we're going to be out here having fun. Like playing sports and partying. And in high school, I didn't have like a core friend group. A lot of people had their core friend group. But I had like 20 different groups where I would hop around. So there's a group of maybe like 3, 4, 5 guys, and I would just go up to them and talk to them like I was part of their friend group. And so I had a bunch of different groups who I would interact with. And when we drove up to ASU from Glendale, we brought all those people with us. Some people went to ASU, some people didn't, but they would still come up on the weekends and stuff. And after I had that threesome, well, multiple threesomes with them, my mindset shifted. It was no longer, okay, I need to hook up with girls. I need to find that experience. That was the top of that experience. I was like, those are the sexiest girls. The best time with them in a $900,000 house. So my mindset shifted after that from I want to talk to girls to, okay, now I want to learn as much as I can, because I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about jobs, careers. I didn't know anything about sales, marketing. I didn't realize everyone was trying to sell you something. Back then, what they told us was, we all want to work together. We're all trying to help each other. So that's what I thought. I thought everyone was trying to help me, and I was trying to help everybody. That's what we genuinely thought back then. So in interview questions, when they're like, so what's your biggest achievement? Instantly what comes to my mind is the threesome with ex number 2. But I can't say that in an interview, so then I have to try to think of something career related. But that was it for me. I was like, wow, I did it. That was like every guy's fantasy. And ever since then is when I stopped connecting with my old guy friends. Because my old guy friends, what do we have in common? We'd play basketball. We'd go try to talk to girls. So right after high school, I really stopped playing basketball as much, and I really stopped talking to girls as much. And they really turned it up more. They really started doing it more. And we had been partying and drinking alcohol since one of my friends, I had a lot of friends that would do beer runs, or they would walk in the grocery store and they would take a fifth and they would put it in their pants and just walk out. And that started when I was 13. I played on an older team, so I think they were 14. In Vegas at Circus Hotel. And we played quarters, and I had Gatorade Rain with vodka in it and some beer. And it was so fun. It was my first time ever drinking. And I didn't even drink that much, but the next day I felt like crap. I was hungover. My poop was like a green color. Like green. And I think this is just alcohol poisoning. But, we just walked that shit off and sweat it out. But, so that's, the first time I drank alcohol was, 13 or 14. And then every couple months or so, I'd say maybe from 16 to 18, no, from 15 to 17, I'd say every couple months before like a dance, a school dance or something, we'd like drink a little alcohol. Some of my friends, we would like find a way to like get a little tipsy. Then I'd say senior year of high school, I chose to have a half day. I was in some APs and honors classes, and my parents didn't go to college, so I didn't really know my ass from my elbow when it came to curriculums and all that kind of stuff. There was a presidential scholarship that I could have got if I just would have got an A in a class instead of a B, because it was like you had to have like a 3.3 GPA and get a certain score on the SATs. And I had the high score on the SATs, but my GPA was like 0.1 or 0.2 off. I didn't try once in high school. I looked at it as a joke. I didn't do homework once. I did all my homework in other classes. Half-assed it all. Got it all done. And now that I think about it, that carried into the workforce because I viewed it all as a joke. And why did I view it all as a joke? Because it wasn't really addressing the right questions or the right root issues or the right problems. And anytime you would figure something out, they would just treat you unfair, and they would be like, you can't do that, or that's not going to work, or so I was just viewed it as a joke. So where are we in this grand scheme of things? We talked about X number 2. Talked about school. I played club basketball on the Southwest Rebels. We traveled to Hawaii for tournaments. I want to say I was maybe 14 or so. And I went in a helicopter on Hawaii and saw Maui. Then we went to Houston. We went to California. And then I remember in first grade, they would give us worksheets. And I would look at the worksheet. It was maybe like 10 questions. And I would just answer everything. As soon as I read it, I wouldn't have to think. It was just like easy, obvious. So boom, boom, boom. And then I would turn in my worksheet first. And I would just sit back and see how long it took the next person to finish. And I was just always finishing like way quicker than everybody else. Second grade comes around. Same thing happens. So my teacher is like, okay, Paul, once you're done, you can go to the back of the classroom and you could play with either these little block things, or you could hop on the computer and play one of these computer games. And back then, the computers in the classroom are like those original first Apple computers that are like teal color on the bottom and like see-through clear on the top. So the games were like Oregon Trail, or this fish game where it's like you start out as a small fish and then you eat bigger fish, and there were some cool games back then. Then in third grade, it was the same thing. You finish your work early. Now I go read books in the back of the classroom, and then it was like book clubs, and it's like if you read a certain amount of books, you get kudos bars. And I loved granola bars. I don't know why, because they were feeding me McDonald's and Reese's all the time. And then I was just playing video games, drinking Mountain Dew a lot of the time. So when these granola bars came out, I was like, oh, this is healthy. So I was like, instead of Reese's, I'll have a kudos bar, or a Tiger's Milk bar, or a Power bar, or whatever these bars were. And then, instead of Mountain Dew, I'll have Gatorade. I'll have Powerade, right? Because the sports drink's supposed to be healthier. So that's kind of like the mindset evolution of like trying to be healthier. How it started. And now it's obviously way more complex than that. And a lot of my friends back then, their parents were feeding them home cooked meals and they were eating their vegetables. So a lot of my friends had abs and I didn't. But then we get out there on the field or on the basketball court and I was dominating them. So I was like, these kids have rich parents and their mom cooks them meals and everything, and my mom's just like, figure it out yourself. Do it yourself. I'm not doing it for you. And my dad was just like encouraging me to not work. He was like, just focus on getting good grades and doing good at basketball. That's your job right now. I was like, okay. And I would do everything my dad said back then because he was my dad. And I still love him. And there was this version of him that's the version of my dad I want to remember. It was right before he met his latest wife. It was just me and him. And we were growing. And he had the talking down. He was like, I'm going to get back into it, man. I'm going to get back into shape. I was like, yeah, just, let's work out. Like, why do you just want to sit on the recliner and watch TV all day when you're not at work? And he would just say, work's just been draining me, all this kind of stuff. I don't buy it. I really think it was the substances he was on. He definitely did nicotine, chewed skull for years. But then I think he did cocaine, and I think he would sneak it. That explains why sometimes he would just get so angry and just go ape shit. And then I was like, oh shit, my dad's like, he's powerful, he's crazy, he's big. Like, okay, I'll just do whatever my dad says type of deal. Looking back on it, I think there were people in his ear trying to get them to instill fear in me as a kid. So now as I'm looking back on everything that happened, I'm like, wow, a lot of that probably were psyops. The people around me were either in on it or they were being used as pawns and not even realize it by the secret societies behind them. So that's why when we go to make the movie about my life, I can put in all these details and you can see from my point of view how I left, how I had to get to school, let's say 7:30. I forget the exact time. Let's say 7:45 was when first period started. I would wake up like 7:20. Oh shit, I'm going to be late. Throw on a hat, throw on my forces, throw on like whatever I could find. And then my style for a while was like a surfer skater t-shirt, Billabong, Hurley or whatever. But then my jeans would be like Fat Farmer, Echo, or South Pole jeans and jacket. It'd have like a Jordan jacket. And then I had my ears pierced. And then once I got my ears pierced, a lot of the guys in our friend groups got their ears pierced. And I was selling people my shoes. They were like, oh, where'd you get those shoes? I'll buy them from you. And I would sell people my shoes and my hats and stuff. And then it was like, okay, like, how can we make money? And I was like, going to some office corporate thing just seems like a joke. So I was like, what are the other options? And then through music and MTV and everything you'd see, you'd hear, they would be like, oh, like, you could sell weed. But I was like, yeah, I don't really want to do that. That doesn't really seem like who I am. And then my cousin came around with Hypnospice, and he introduced it to me and this other guy who became my partner in the spice business for a while. And the way my cousin told us about it, he's like, yeah, it's just a bunch of herbs and it's legal and you get it at a smoke shop and it's better for you than weed because it's just all natural herbs. And again, I don't think people understand how unintelligent I was back then. So of course I'm like, oh shit, this is great. Okay, so boom, not only did we try it, but then we were like, oh, like we could sell this and it's legal, it's a legit business. So my partner had his dad make us business cards. And then we'd just go around and we'd sell spice to people. And I was making decent money for a while. And then at ASU, I had all this spice on me. And then I started selling weed as well because the guy that we sold spice to was a weed dealer. So I'd sell spice to him and then I'd buy weed from him. And now, so I'm selling spice and weed, and I have that in the dorms at ASU. And I remember walking through it's called Devil's Diner in Manzanita. No, it wasn't Manzanita. I'm sorry. It was Devil Diner at PV, Maine. It was Devil's Diner at PV, Maine. And I remember walking through the front desk area, and there's a few cops there asking about the business card. Herbal Hypnotics was the name of it. And they're like, do you know anything about this? And I was just walking by like, oh shit, like they're looking for me. So after that, I was like, okay, I gotta move the stash out of the dorms because these dorms were old. They didn't have ventilation, so you brought it in there, it would smell up the whole dorm. And we already had cops come into my suite mate's dorm, and we would just there was 2 rooms connected by a bathroom. So I didn't have a roommate first semester, but I had a suite mate on the other side of the bathroom. So when the cops came in, we would just shift it from one room to the other room or something. Like we always would get out of things. We would, technically I was breaking the law because I didn't agree with the law. So, I didn't agree with the law. I'm like, why can't I sell this stuff? I'm not hurting anyone. So my mindset was like, as long as I'm not hurting anybody, it shouldn't be illegal. So let's do it anyway. Which now is not the case for most things, but there's still kind of that is it legal or is it lawful? Because the legal system is fraudulent and unlawful. But what is lawful is not being malicious, not trying to hurt anybody. But then that's complicated because then it's like, what species are you? And by design, some species want to feed off other species. And that's a whole other topic of how we can kind of manage that, right? Yeah, they're just counting their days. They're so scared. God, they're so scared. Count those days, baby. Count those days. Yeah, all that fear they try to project is going right back to the little fucking urethras. The little fucking urethra holes. Yeah. Big bird in a motherfucking building, boy. But anyways. They soft. They soft and little is what they is. They cowards and they soft and little. But don't let them distract you. So I got out the spice business. And I gave my clientele list to my partner. And I switched to just selling weed now. And I had different tiers. I had some Shake, some Reggie, real cheap. It was like 10 a gram. And then I had really good stuff that was like 20 a gram. And I would hook my friends up. I would give them, 1.1, 1.2, and stuff like that. And I was just, I would buy by the ounce, sell it by the gram. Couple flips, couple $100. I didn't do it for that long. Before, basically, one of my friends was like, hey, can I give your number to this guy I know for you to sell to him? Again, back then, I know nothing about nothing. I'm just thinking more people equals more money. Go ahead, sure, I'll sell to everyone. I didn't know there was like undercover cops and informants and all this kind of stuff. So anyways, I ended up selling to some random guy I don't even know. And I'm riding around with it all in my glove box because I can't smell up the dorm. And I would go to LA Fitness parking lot there in Scottsdale. And I would weigh it up and bag it up in the parking lot there. But anyway, so I sell to this guy, and he got an eighth, and it was only $60, but he ended up giving me $80. I handed it to him through the window. And then as I'm backing out, there was like a brown SUV next to me, had a flashlight, and he's like, stop the car. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, it was an undercover cop. And then basically, he's like, how long you been doing this? What do you have? Where'd you get it from? I was like, I've only been doing this like a few weeks. I don't remember where I got it from. Even though I did. I wasn't about to just snitch on the guy who was just selling me ounces anyway. They impounded my car, but he's like, okay, you could walk back to the dorm. So that was nice that they didn't take me to jail for that. And then right before that, though, my partner in the spice business ended up selling a pound of spice to the guy that I gave him the contact to. So he was super lit. So he's like, hey, for spring break, we're going to Rocky Point, but we need someone to drive. He's like, if you drive, since I just made thousands of bucks off this contact you gave me, I'll pay for your trip to Rocky Point if you drive. So I was like, let's go. And it was the most fun trip ever. We go up there. There was 5 of us. And we got a really nice resort hotel room there in Rocky Point. They want me to just come out there. They're such little finicky little finnickers. I don't know. They think this is like 2005 or something. They're living in the past. There's a lot of them, but they're little weasels, man. But okay, don't be disrespectful. Thunderbird and Thunderstorm, they're here coming. Now, we get to Rocky Point. As soon as we get there, we start taking tequila shots with the salt and the lime as the chaser. We meet girls at the bar. Boom. Go back to the room. Hook up with them. Then the next day, wake up. It's like a make-out contest. How many girls can you make out with? And, like, every time you make out with a girl, you put a tally on your forearm. Some of my friends were up to 20. It's just wild. And you're drinking all day, drinking all night, going to the clubs, going to the pool. And it was my birthday, so I was 18 turning 19. And the legal age to drink is 18. So it's a bunch of kids who weren't able to drink back in Arizona. Now we can all drink, so we're all just going crazy. And one of the guys was sneaking perks in the bathroom, so he was extra amped up. And a lot of the guys at this point who were in the party scene were sneaking a little extra pills or coke, or everyone smoking cigarettes around me, but not telling me all the time because they knew I didn't do it. So I'm like, okay, a little bit of alcohol on the weekends to party is okay, especially relative to what everyone else is doing, right? And then a little bit of weed every now and then is okay, better than cigarettes and like smoking hookah all the time. And that was my mindset. So the whole time I'm partying, but I'm like trying to do it as healthy as I possibly can. So anyways, then we're taking body shots off girls, and they're taking body shots off us. It's just so fun. And back then it was like we had big groups from high school. Everyone knew each other. We'd all see each other at the parties. We'd all say what's up, and it was a good vibe. But anyways, the guy that's sneaking these perks, we go to rent these quads, and we're all holding Dos Equis in our hands. They don't care. So we pay for the quads. We hop on the quads with our beers. And immediately as we get on the quads, as the guy's telling us, like, the instructions or whatever, the guy who's been sneaking the perks, he's, like, looking over and he's, like, revving the quad. And he's, and then as soon as he's like, okay, you guys can go now, he takes off on the quad, immediately swerves going, like, 50, hits a fence, and cuts off his, like, whole hand gets sliced open. And breaks the quad. So we're like, oh shit. Now the quad's broken. I don't think these guys understand. They literally just power me up. That's all they do. They power me up in the kingdom of heaven. They just power me up. So thank you for powering me up. But anyways, I don't even know. I don't even know if they're the ops or my bodyguards. Same thing. Ops, my bodyguards, same shit. So anyways, motherfucking, we're like, oh fuck, we can't go anymore. But they still let us go. So him and another guy went to go get him stitched up, and me and the other guys drove around on quads, drinking our beer while we drove the quads. Then we go to the club that night, and I end up, me and the guy who was my partner, we each have a girl, and we go back in some type of taxi shuttle thing from the club. And he lets us out, and he's like, okay, time to pay. And the guy who was my partner and his girl, they just like ran off. And that's the guy that said, I'll pay for your trip. So he's supposed to cover the cost of the shuttle, you know. And I didn't even have any money on me. And I forget it, like, if I had money in my account, but, like, they didn't accept card. I forget exactly, like, the finances. But anyways, he was supposed to pay for that. He runs off. So now it's just me and the girl that I just met. And we're like, yeah, like, we can't pay for it. We don't have any money. So they're like, okay, like, we're going to have to, like, take you to jail then. So now it's me and this girl I just met, but we're both drunk and we're just, like, making out. Like, we're still having fun with each other. So then they, like, split us up. They put me in the back of the bed and they put her in the back seat. And then I start speaking in Spanish, in Spanglish. It's not that great, but I took 6 years of Spanish, so I'm able to get the point across. And the security guy, was like, oh, you're from Phoenix? I have family that lives right by Arizona Mills. I'm like, oh, no shit. Like, I shop there sometimes. And I don't know what it was, but they ended up just, like, letting us go and not taking us to jail and taking us back to the resort. And after that, I was like, damn it. Like, that guy, like, fucked me over. And breakfast that day or the next day, the 5 or 6 guys I was with at breakfast all got up and ditched, and I was the only one there left. That's what it was. The day before that, I did have like $70 or $80 on me, and then they all dipped, and I basically got stuck paying the bill for breakfast. So the money that I did have, I had to pay for the bill for breakfast. So that's what it was. So we get back to the hotel, and, you know, we start having fun in the room, and then I'm like, hey, let's take this to the beach. So we take the little bottle of Absolute, my blanket, and we go to the beach, and then we start making love on the beach. And it was just so peaceful there. I was the only one out there. Then another security guard pulls up to us on the beach after a little while, and I'm thinking they're going to tell us, like, you can't do that. But all they say is, hey, have you seen this guy? And they were looking for my friend who broke the quad. So I'm like, oh, shit. Like, what did this guy do now? He's, like, on the run from these guys. Like, I was like, no, I haven't seen him. And then we just, like, went back to, like, having sex on the beach. It was just, like, the craziest shit. But anyways, the next day, I'm like, okay, I didn't really sleep these last couple of days. We were just partying. I'm like, I need to sleep. I need a break. I need to sleep. So it's like 9 or 10 a.m. I'm trying to get some sleep, and everyone else had gotten some sleep. So they were like, come on, Paul, like, you know, come on, like, get up, come on. We're only going to be here for one more day. You don't want to sleep the whole day away. There's pool parties, there's stuff, there's tacos. Come on, like. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. So they send a girl in the room to help wake me up. And she did. She did wake me up. So then after that, I was like, okay, well, shit, I'm up now. So, okay, boom, let's go. And then that's when my other friend was like, hey, I got something that'll keep you up. It's called a Pink Panther. And that's the first time I tried Adderall. I don't know if it was a 10 or a 20 instant release, like, tablet thing. But I trusted him. He was smart, successful. Definitely wasn't like a druggie or anything. So I was like, okay. And before that, I had asked some other friends about it, and they would say, yeah, I take it and it just helps me clean the house. And then I looked it up, and it said there was no long-term known side effects for taking it. So I did my research, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it, I'll try it. So I tried it, and sure enough, like, then we're just, like, lit. And then it's like I wasn't tired anymore. So we just run on the beach. We're just going talking to everyone. Now I'm just talking to everyone. And end up making it to the club that night. Tired, hungover, but still doing it. I had my shades on in the club. And left with the best looking woman of the trip. And, you know, I was doing my thing back then. And that's why after the threesome and then after the Rocky Point trip, I was like, I'm good with being a player, like with trying to hook up with girls. Yo, don't be on my shit like that. So I was like, I'm good. I got it out of my system. Now let's go focus on school. Now let's go focus on growth. I just turned 19. I'm like, I'm done drinking. I'm like, after what I just did, that bender, 3 days in a row drinking, I'm like, it can't get any better. And the Dos Equis was the lime, the tacos, all the people, like 50 to 100 people that I knew were all just partying. Like, it was the best. So I'm like, okay, that was it. That's a wrap. Now let me move on to my next thing. And that's when there was like a big disconnect. Because then it was like, everyone's like, we're not even 21 yet. Like, they didn't even start drinking yet. Everyone like started drinking when they were 21. I was done drinking when I was 19, really. Now, I still drank a few times after that, but nothing like up until that trip. Then right after that trip, I was like, okay, I'm 19. My dad's like, okay, now you can be a server at Chili's. So I started as a server. And people were mad because they had to start as a host or a hostess. And I would have started as a host or a hostess. But again, when I was younger, my dad said, no, don't work. Focus on school, focus on basketball. Whatever. So then I started working at Chili's. 20 to 30 hours a week, part-time, picking up shifts every now and then, and making decent money. It was there at Shea in the 101, so I saw Mel Gibson once, I saw Mike Bibby once, and I got some good tips. Then this girl came in, ex number 3. Looking back on it, it had to be a psyop. But I don't want to speculate on too many details on who was in cahoots with who and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to stick to the facts that I know that I experienced for now. Where was I? So, ex number 3 at Chili's. So I had been working there at least 6 months, maybe longer. And they changed staff a lot. They changed managers a lot. They changed servers a lot, right? So a new person gets hired. And I'm like, oh, she's cute. But it was like once we started talking, I was like, oh, she's different. And the main difference I noticed was that she wasn't as girly and like cheerleader-y as my previous ex, and she wasn't in these big like girl groups that to me were annoying, being overly like exaggerating and extra like girly and stuff. So I was like, oh, she's different. That's cool. And then I was like, oh, she's Italian, like me. And we started sharing food at Chili's. I was like, oh, this is fun. Like, I have someone to share food with. And then we started talking when we were doing our side work on a table off to the side. And she was like, yeah, I really want to help people. I always wanted to be like a private investigator. And I was like, oh, me too. I always thought that would be really fun. And we just had this type of like connection. And she was engaged when I met her. And they say how it starts is how it ends.